Hello everyone. Today we're going to be looking at the differences between the Strymon Big Sky and the Strymon Night Sky. Big Sky here is Strymon's flagship reverb pedal with 12 reverb algorithms which have been carefully put together. Strymon have extensively studied the fundamentals of acoustic science as well as digital reverb units from the last 50 years to create some of the most realistic reverbs as well as some out-of-the-world reverbs, all put into this tiny little box. The Night Sky here is Strymon's newer addition to its reverb family, and I like to refer to this pedal as more of a reverb synth. It lacks the multiple algorithms of the Big Sky, this one only has 3, but it makes up for it with the depth of control, the onboard sequencer, and the synth-like filters, allowing you to create some crazy soundscape. Now let's look at the basic features of the two pedals, starting with the controls that you would see on most reverb pedals. The Big Sky features a single mix knob, blending your signal between dry and wet. The Night Sky, on the other hand, has separate controls for your dry and wet, and this is really handy for getting your balance just right between the two. Although the Big Sky does have an overall level control to boost or cut your signal, the Night Sky has a little bit more control in this aspect. As for decay, the Big Sky has a standard decay knob, controlling the length of the reverb. The Night Sky has a length knob, which essentially acts in the same way. It does have this texture button here, which selects between the different algorithms of the Night Sky, but for all intents and purposes, the length knob on the Night Sky and the decay knob on the Big Sky do the same thing. The size pitch knob and the Quantize button do something really special and is somewhat the heart of this pedal, but let's look at that in greater detail later. Similarly to the mix feature, the Big Sky has one knob for tone, making a reverb brighter or darker, while the Night Sky has 2 separate controls for low cut and high cut filters. We also get this filter button here, which selects between 2 different Q settings for the high cut knob. In regen mode, this is a standard high cut with a smooth Q. And in low pass mode, this introduces a resonant peak, and this is somewhat similar to what you would find on a synth. For modulation control, which usually refers to pitch modulation applied to the reverb, the Big Sky again has a single mod knob, which allows you to have more modulation, or less, while the Night Sky has separate speed and depth controls for its modulation. It also again has these 2 buttons here. Target is selecting what the modulation is being applied to, whether it be the reverb itself, whether it be the pitch knob found over here, or whether it be modulating the filters. We also have a shape button here, which selects between the different waveforms of the modulation. And we have triangle, square, ramp, saw, random, and envelope. Envelope will react to whatever is going into the pedal, so depending on what you are playing, it'll actually change the amount of modulation being applied. This can be really cool to create some dynamic effects. Now let's have a look at how we access presets in these 2 pedals. On the Night Sky, we have a favorite switch, allowing you to access a second preset on the fly. You can also see these sequence steps have lit up. These actually correspond to 8 different presets, which you can access with the favorite switch. We also have this morph function if we hold the on button down, but let's have a look at this a little bit later in greater detail. On the Big Sky, we have 3 foot switches, which correspond to the 3 presets on each bank. And if we press 2 foot switches at once, you can see we're scrolling between the banks there. Now let's have a look at the infinite functions on these 2 pedals. If we engage the Night Sky and press the infinite switch, this will hold whatever note that you are playing into the pedal. This can be really cool for creating ambient drones, which you can play on top of. But you can also set this pedal so that new notes that you play will be added to the freeze. On the Big Sky, we have a similar feature, and all we have to do is just engage this and hold the foot switch down. This will freeze the reverb similarly to how the Night Sky does. Now let's have a look at pre-delay. The Big Sky again has one knob for pre-delay, increasing it or decreasing it. While on the Night Sky, you have to hold down the texture button and adjust the reverb knob. For shimmer reverbs, the Night Sky has a dedicated section for this in the voice section, which has separate controls for interval and the volume, and where the shimmer is applied, whether it be in the input or on the regeneration of the reverb. On the Big Sky, we actually have a dedicated algorithm for this, and we can actually pick between two different intervals. For example, you could have an octave up and an octave down. It lacks the dedicated knobs like the Night Sky does, but it's really cool that it has its own algorithm. One feature that sets the Big Sky apart from the Night Sky are the sheer amount of reverb algorithms. We won't go through every single sound, but here's a quick demo of the different sounds that are available on this. We also have these special algorithms here like swell, which swells your notes in, the bloom reverb, cloud, and choral. The Big Sky also has a magneto algorithm which simulates a multi-head tape echo. This is really cool because now you can use your Big Sky as a delay pedal with your decay knob controlling your delay time. Something we don't see on the Night Sky are these two parameter knobs. These can be assigned to any parameter per preset, which is really handy for quick adjustments on stage or in the studio. For example, on the shimmer setting, you'll see that these two knobs control the interval of the octave. We also have this value knob here, and depending on what the screen displays, this value knob will do different things. When the decay time is present, this is a fine-tuned adjustment for the decay time. When the bank or preset name is present, this will scroll between the different presets or banks. You can also push the value knob to access the parameter menu, or hold it to go into the global menu. The type knob controls what algorithm the Big Sky is running. These range from incredibly realistic room, hall, plate, and spring reverbs, all the way to some crazy ones like we saw before with the choral and cloud algorithms. Something I didn't mention before is this reflections algorithm. This actually simulates a real room. And this can be really handy for creating stuff like drum room sounds or just room sounds in general, where you want to place your music in an acoustic space. The final feature on the Big Sky which the Night Sky lacks is the built-in cab sim on the back. This is super handy for situations where your amp goes down and you need a quick solution for getting some direct tones. Now let's look at some of the new features on the Night Sky, starting with the texture button. The texture button is similar to that of the algorithms on the Big Sky, but they aren't as drastic in terms of change. Let's have a listen to them. In the voice section of the Night Sky, we will find a drive button, which adds some overdrive to the reverb signal. There are three options: pre, post, or none. Pre means that the drive is applied to the signal before the reverb, and post applies the distortion after the reverb. This is a really cool way to bring out your reverb and add some more character to it. Right next to the drive section, we find the Glimmer section, which controls the harmonic content of the reverb. Although it's similar to the drive section, it's more akin to using something like an exciter to bring out harmonic content as opposed to actually distorting the reverb like the drive section does. Like the drive, there are three options: high, low, or none. This is is again a really cool way to bring out your reverb without using EQs or drastic distortion like the drive button. Now let's have a look at the size pitch knob and the quantize button. This is where we really get into the magic of this pedal. This feature really shines when you engage the infinite switch. So, let's engage the pedal. Freeze whatever we've got. And we've already killed the dry signal there. Now, if we adjust the size pitch knob, this will actually shift the pitch of the reverb. The quantize button will quantize these notes to a particular scale, with half step being a chromatic scale, and scale being a user assigned scale. This is adjustable by holding the quantize button and then selecting these different presets. I will include which presets correspond to which scale on screen. Currently this is in harmonic minor, and let's try shifting this reverb in that scale. This section down here is the sequencer, which sequences different settings of the size pitch knob. Let me show you what I mean. First, let's freeze some signal into this. And then what we're going to do is hold the infinite switch to go into sequencer mode. You can see that these preset buttons light up. Now what we're going to do is hold down one of these steps and adjust the size pitch knob. What that will do is save this pitch knob into the step that I'm holding down. For example, I will hold step 1 and adjust this knob. Now the setting is saved into that step. Let's repeat this for the other 7 steps and hear what that sounds like. Now what we can do is use the on foot switch to go between the different sequence steps. Another way to engage the sequencer is to tap this twice, and what it'll do is start the sequence at the tempo that you have tapped in. This is what really makes me call this a reverb synth. With the quantize button, you can create some insane soundscapes to a particular key, or have them shift chromatically or smoothly between notes. You can also adjust the time it takes for notes to glide into each other like a portamento. All you have to do is hold the shape button and adjust the reverb knob. The very left foot switch of the Night Sky engages the pedal on and off, as you've seen. When you hold it, however, it engages the Morph function, which allows you to swap completely to a different setting. Kind of like a second preset, but accessed by a momentary hold of the foot switch. When you let go, it reverts back to the settings you originally had. What's even cooler about this function is that the settings actually morph into each other slowly or quickly, and you can actually adjust the speed by holding down the foot switch and turning the reverb knob, so we can make it almost momentary, or we can make it take a long time. On the back of the Night Sky, we have a line/instrument switch, which selects between instrument and line level. The Big Sky accepts line level as well, but you do have to watch your input level, as it may distort going into the pedal. Now, the two things that both of these pedals have in common is they both have an expression input, they also have MIDI in and out, and 2 inputs for stereo and 2 outputs for stereo as well. Both pedals feature Strymon's top-of-the-range analog dry path, with your dry signal never being converted to digital, which preserves your original tone as closely as possible. The Night Sky features an analog JFET preamp, and both pedals have a 24-bit 96 kHz A to D and D to A conversion, top of the range. So, which one is right for you? Now, you might think after watching this that the Night Sky is the obvious winner here, but that's simply not the case. In In my personal opinion, the Night Sky is built for those who want to dive deep into reverb soundscapes. And with the sequencer and the size and pitch knob, you can almost use this like its own instrument for some really unique sounds. The Big Sky, on the other hand, I find leans more towards those who need a multitude of sounds which are quickly accessible by a single turn of the knob. Although they have some of the best realistic sounding reverbs that I've ever heard, don't discount the crazy sounds either. They definitely rival the Night Sky in terms of its soundscape craziness. We also have the magneto mode, so that you can use this pedal as a delay. And although you may have to do some menu diving, most of the important controls are all accessible on the front panel, making this a really quick and easy to use pedal on the fly for when you're on the stage or in the studio. Thank you guys for watching this video. I'll see you next time.